The UseRef hook is the most important hook in React when we want to get reference to a DOM element or even manipulate the DOM directory without causing a re-render. We can also make use of the UseRef hook to store a value that persists across renders. And in this video, I'll teach you everything that you need to know about the UseRef hook so that you can start using it in your React projects. So here we'll go through several examples, and the first use case is adding a focus to this input field whenever we click on this button. And then we'll go through other examples as we move on to help you understand even further. So the first thing that we need to do is to bring in UseRef hook. So here I'll bring in UseRef hook from React, just like that. And then I'll create a variable here, and I can say const input ref, and I'll set this one to be equal to our UseRef, and we invoke it. So now we want this input ref to be aware of our input element right here. And for that case, every element have an attribute called ref, and we'll set that to be equal to our input ref. And with this, we are able to access this input using our input ref. And to confirm this, we can log this input ref to the console, but I want to do that after our component mounts or renders. So I'll make use of the use effect hook. So here I'll add an effect hook just like that, and we will console.log of input ref, but to access our input right here or our element, we need to add .current, and this .current is where React stores our element or even our values. So we have to add that. So now I'll go ahead and save. And when I save, you'll see on this other side at the console, we have our input field, and it is exactly this particular input field. So we are able to access this input field using this input ref, and that is because of our UseRef hook. So to add focus to this input is very easy. We just need to go to the button right here, and then we will add an onClick event. And here I'll call an arrow function, and we will say input ref dot current, and now we know that that is our input here. And what we will do, we will just call the focus method. So I call focus, make sure to invoke it, and I save. And now whenever I click on this focus input, you'll notice that it focuses our input field. I click and it focuses our input field. You can also make it such that whenever our app loads, it focuses the input field by default. So this is something that you might see in chat applications. So whenever you visit the chat, the input is automatically focused. So we can make use of ref to do that. And all we need to do is to call this input ref.current.focus whenever our app loads. And we know we can do that in our use effect. So in this particular use effect, I can add right here a dependency array to make sure that these only run once whenever our app renders. And then we will add this code right there. And I can remove this console log, and I'll go ahead and save. And now whenever we refresh here, you'll notice that our input is automatically focused, which is really cool. Now the other thing that we can do with the ref, we can use it to clear our input. So right now I can type, but we can make use of this button to clear the input. Right now whenever I click, it doesn't clear the input. So that is also very easy, because I just need to come to this button, add an onClick event. So I'll say onClick and open these brackets and an arrow function here. So here I can just open the curly brackets, and I can say input ref dot current dot value, and I'll set this one to be equal to an empty string like that. Now I'll go ahead and save. Right now we have this text in here. Whenever I click on clear input, it clears the input. And all these does not cause our component to re-render. So the last example here when working with the DOM elements is when we want to automatically scroll to the bottom of a particular container. And this again is useful in chat applications. Whenever you send a message, you want the chat to be at the very bottom as new messages come in. You don't want the chat to hang at the top. So we will create this auto scroll behavior whenever our component loads using the UseRef hook. So the first thing that we need to do is to create a reference to this particular div which has our overflowing content. So here we can create a new ref variable, and I'll say const, I can say content ref to be equal to UseRef, and then I come to the very bottom, and right here we'll say ref is equals to, we set it to our content ref, and with this our content ref will hold this particular div as we saw earlier. So if we go ahead and log it to the console, I save, you'll notice that it is holding our content. Therefore we have access to that div. Okay, so now whenever our app loads right here, we can first make sure that we have that ref. So we'll say if we have our content ref dot current, we will go ahead and we want to trigger a scroll. So here we will say content ref dot current dot scroll top, and I'll set this one to be equal to our content ref dot current, and then we say scroll height. Okay, and with this, whenever our component renders the first time, it will automatically scroll these to the bottom. So I'll go ahead and save this. I will refresh here, and look, it's at the bottom right here. And to verify that, whenever I remove this and save, and we happen to refresh here, you'll notice this is at the top until you scroll. So if you have a chat application and messages are coming in, you don't want this to be at the top, you want it to be always at the bottom. So you can add a functionality like this one. So whenever it's at the top and we refresh, it will come at the bottom. So that is one of the use case of the UseRef hook. You can access the DOM elements directly and even manipulate them without causing our app to re-render, which is awesome. So the other use case is that you can make use of the UseRef hook to store values. Okay, you can store any kind of a value. You can store a number, you can store a string, a boolean, an object, all those data types. And in this case, I want us to store a number to count how many times our component will render. So here I'll create another ref and I'll say const render count will be equal to UseRef, and we store 0 here, and here we can print that to the UI. I can say render count, make sure it's in curly brackets dot current, just like that. I save, and you'll see it's right here. This is our count. Okay, I'll use another use effect here. I'll say use effect, and we will call our render count dot current, and we will say plus plus, so it will increment the value of our render count. So this, whenever our component re-renders, it will increment the count. So I save, and let's type something here, and look, it is counting. And the awesome thing is that it is not causing this component to re-render. Now if we were to make use of the state to store this count and also make use of the use effect, that will be really awful because it will cause an infinite loop which does not stop. And I can show you how that looks like. So I can duplicate this use state here, and we change these variables here to count, and this one to set count. Okay, now if we were to update the state, we will do like this here. We will say set count, we get the previous count, and we take the previous count, so I'll say +1, and I happen to save. And look, use state is causing an infinite loop, and what is happening is that whenever it updates the first time, this component will re-render, and then it will call this use effect. This use effect will update the count, and whenever we update the state, that causes the component to re-render again. So this will go on and on and on, and you can see right here now we are at 70,000 re-renders, which is crazy. So this is another use case which we might want to make use of the UseRef hook. Whenever we want to store some value and change that value, and we don't want that to cause the component to re-render, that's when we can make use of our ref. I return this to our render count dot current, and I save, and that craziness stops. So we have seen two use cases of the UseRef hook. Whenever you want to access the DOM elements directly, or even manipulate them directly without causing the component to re-render. And another use case is whenever we want to store a value like this render count right here, and that value persists across renders and it does not cause the component to re-render. So that is all about the UseRef hook. If this video is helpful, leave a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.